Good morning and welcome to Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Virtual Church. My name is Tom Burns and I'm glad we can get together even though we cannot actually be together. Today our minister, the Reverend Jeff Briere, brings us another side of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. To accompany the lighting of the chalice, I bring you words from 1963 when Reverend Dr. King was jailed in Birmingham, Alabama, a place he called the most segregated city in America. While in jail, he wrote a response to 8 white Alabama clergymen who had argued not against his goals, but against his methods. It became known as the letter from the Birmingham Jail. These words come from the 4th paragraph. I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta, not concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Not unlike our interconnected web of existence, we all have different reasons for gathering here each week, but we have this much in common. We work together as a church to transform ourselves, our community, and our world by sharing love, pursuing justice, and seeking wonder.
He had a dream of a world free of hatred and anger. He had a dream of a love beyond race, creed, or color. He had a dream and he gave it to me. What will I do with it? Who will I be? I've got to stand up, shout and be heard. I've got to let my heart guide my words. I've got to steady my speed and say, what would it be like if you were king for a day? He had a dream that all violence would one day be ended. His dream of freedom. He had a dream that our world torn apart would be mended. His dream of freedom. He had a dream
We will sing Loving Kindness next. Please light a candle to dispel the darkness, to honor someone or some event, or to bring light to a memory.
My name is Jeff Briere, and I am the minister of this virtual church. I hope you are safe and well. Please wear a mask in public, keep your distance from other people, and when it becomes available, get vaccinated. Now That He Is Safely Dead is a poignant poem that was written by Carl Wendell Hines soon after the assassination of Malcolm X in 1965. But the poem has come to be more associated with the murder of Martin Luther King and his legacy of nonviolent struggle for black liberation, equality, voting rights, job opportunities, economic justice, and the pursuit of happiness. Now that he is safely dead, let us praise him, build monuments to his glory, sing hosannas to his name. Dead men make such convenient heroes. They cannot rise to challenge the images we would fashion from their lives. And besides, it's easier to build monuments than to build a better world. Ignoring Dr. King's governing principle of unrelenting struggle against injustice and resistance to evil, America has, since his murder, posthumously awarded him a national holiday, a statue in Washington, D.C., and frequent references to the moving "I Have a Dream" speech from 1963. And in the process, a major point of his mission has been lost. A deeply ingrained institutional racism has managed to keep in check his demands for real reforms for minorities by repeatedly focusing on the very worthy dream speech rather than on King's more radical message. The congenial Martin Luther King of 1963 is easier to deal with than the fire-breathing, more militant anti-war King of 1968, who knew he didn't have all that much time left to teach and preach and inspire. King's ministry as a pastor and his tactics as a civil rights leader were both based on the radical gospel teachings of the Golden Rule and unconditional love of friend and enemy. The original form of Christianity of the first century barely survives today in a few small, often discredited places. King was an easily recognizable echo of the original voice of Jesus, and he had the courage to preach those dangerous truths that threatened the military power of his nation. Dr. King knew all about the power and the practicality of the power of love, but he also knew what usually happened to the prophets who preached it. Usually prophets are ignored early on, but then, if the rabble-rouser doesn't go away, they are more actively opposed and eventually brought down, by hook or by crook. German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer noted that all great truths are dealt with in three ways. First, they are ignored. Second, they are violently opposed. And third, they are accepted as self-evident. In our era, where bullies, informers, spies, lobbyists, corporations, and politicians use propaganda, fear, violence, and silence to tell the truth tellers, the first two parts of Schopenhauer's observation still hold. But today, there are more sophisticated ways to discredit or silence the prophets that delay the third part. The enemies of truth have perfected the use of dirty tricks, smear campaigns, rumor mongering, psyops, intimidation, photo manipulation, infiltration of the prophet's movement, disinformation campaigns, threats to the prophet or their family, and the arranging of murders to look like accidents or suicides. So it goes. Being a prophet is hazardous duty. King called it a vocation of agony. Prophets such as King know very well that they are going to pay a heavy price for their refusal to bow down to authority. They know that they will have to endure character assassination and eventually physical assassination if they don't shut up. Many Americans prefer to believe that the essence of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was his speech, "I Have a Dream." Repeated airings of that worthy speech have successfully kept hidden his more powerful anti-war speech entitled Beyond Vietnam, which he gave in April of 1967 at Riverside Church in New York City. And it was King's willingness to come out against that dirty war in Vietnam in his Beyond Vietnam speech that unleashed the assassination plot in order to permanently silence him exactly 1 year to the day after he gave that speech. In 1967, at the Riverside Church in New York City, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said these words: "As I have walked among the desperate, rejected, and angry young men, I have told them that Molotov cocktails and rifles would not solve their problems. I've tried to offer them my deepest compassion while maintaining my conviction that social change comes most meaningfully through nonviolent action. But they asked, what about Vietnam? They asked if our own nation wasn't using massive doses of violence to solve its own problems, to bring about the changes it wanted. Their questions hit home, and I knew that I could never again raise my voice against the violence of the oppressed in the ghettos without having first spoken clearly to the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today, my own government." The words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. King saw the connections between the financial, spiritual, and psychological costs of the human slaughter in Vietnam and the racial and economic violence that was preventing blacks from attaining justice in this country. King knew a nation could not adequately fund both guns and butter. A nation had to choose between the two, and America's politicians, as usual, made the easy choice. They voted massive funds for guns and a pittance for butter. The funding would predictably go to fight the war and not fight poverty and injustice. President Johnson's war on poverty was lost because American war profiteers chose to fight a war in Vietnam instead. King knew that the war in Vietnam trumped freedom for the oppressed back home. Now, many historians believe that King signed his own death warrant with that preaching at Riverside Church in 1967. The war profiteers, the pseudo-war, pseudo-patriots, the weapons industry funded politicians, well, they could not absolutely tolerate any anti-war activism that might interfere with the cash cow that was the Vietnam War. In his speech at the Riverside Church, King proclaimed, A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. King pointed out the absurdity of the guns and butter myth, and he accused those who quietly went along with the military's wasting of precious resources on war as being guilty of committing crimes against humanity. The elephant in the room that King railed against is the military spending that keeps justice from being delivered. Reversing poverty and racism is impossible when the Pentagon continues to spend $2 billion every day on war, weapons systems, and militarism. Every program of social uplift, be it education, healthcare, good nutrition, safe drinking water, education, safe air to breathe, living wages, whatever, that is all made unaffordable when military spending is the nation's top priority. The spirit of Martin Luther King is not dead if only we will listen to what he is trying to tell us. We need not take his message seriously. Yes, we need to take his message seriously. King accurately echoed what Jesus commanded his followers to do. Put away the sword, for those who live by the sword will die by the sword. Without serious resistance to America's unthinking willingness and eagerness to pursue enemies everywhere, there will be no hope of achieving equality, economic sustainability, living wages, and an end to racism. We can't afford to keep putting King's message on hold. I am indebted to Gary Coles for this short sermon. He is a retired physician who writes about peace and justice, militarism, mental health, and religious issues. The Centers for Disease Control, as well as the Food and Drug Administration, have become politicized, so I recommend that you consider that when you read or hear what they suggest. Nonetheless, wearing a mask, staying away from other people, avoiding large indoor gatherings, well, in my opinion, those are good ideas. So is getting vaccinated. And please remember what Zig Ziglar said, you can have all you want in this life if you just help other people get what they want.
Our benediction comes from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. On the 4th of February, 1968, at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, he preached a sermon entitled The Drum Major Instinct. These words are taken from that sermon. If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. Here's the thing I like about it. By giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great, because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics to serve. You only need a good heart and a soul generated by love, and you can be that servant. In 1994, Congress passed the King Holiday and Service Act, designating the Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday as a national day of service, and charged the Corporation for National and Community Service with leading this effort. Each year on the third Monday in January, that's tomorrow, King Day is a federal holiday observed as a day of service. It's a day on, not a day off. Participation in the MLK Day of Service has grown over the past decade, with hundreds of thousands of Americans each year engaging in projects such as tutoring and mentoring children, painting schools and senior centers, delivering meals, building homes, and reflecting on Dr. King's life and teachings. Many of the projects started on King Day continue to engage volunteers beyond the holiday and impact the community year-round. To learn more or find a volunteer opportunity, Google MLK Day of Service and you will find much good information. Our time together is nearly finished, but our work is not done. May our spirits be renewed and our resolve strengthened as we meet the challenges of the week to come. Please help me close this service now. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and share with all the world. My name is Jana Huss, and I am happy that you could join us for this service. Please come back whenever you like. We will post another virtual church service next Sunday. Please contact the minister or the caring team if you or someone you know needs help during this time. Our services are recorded in advance, so current events may move faster than our ability to address them in a timely fashion. However, you can find up-to-date information on local events, social justice issues, inspiration, and content for all ages on our Facebook page. To close our service, Amy and Wendy have prepared a song by Pat Humphries, Bound for Freedom. And as you make your way through the week, remember that you are good, you are loved, we all need a little work, and we're all in this together. Nothing left to say but, yay, church!
In Montgomery and in Selma,